what I would do, I mentioned their names, where they're coming from, but I also allow them room to talk a bit about themselves, what they do, their work and partnerships. I will start off with Christophe.
Hello, nice to be there. Just introducing myself. My name is Christophe Cottet, and I'm the country director of the French Development Agency in Ghana. Do you want me to elaborate a bit?
Yes, what do you do at AFD?
Okay, just to explain. So the AFD is for Agence Française de Développement, which basically means the French Development Agency. So it's basically the bilateral bank of France, and with a mandate which is to finance SDGs and especially climate change, but also innovation actually. And so we've been working in Ghana from 1985, so quite a long time actually. And it was actually Ghana was the first Anglophone country office in an Anglophone country. So it's quite an historic office for IFD. And basically we have three entities. So IFD, which is financing the government and public companies and public banks. And we have two subsidiaries. One is Proparco, which is financing the private sector, and also possibly digital companies. And another company, which is another subsidiary, which is Expertise France, which is the technical assistance branch arm of IFD. So I'll stop there, and I can elaborate later on what we do for digital, as you wish.
Thank you very much, Christophe.
Thank you.
So Karyn?
Hello. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Karyn, and thank you for the opportunity. I would also like to say thank you to those who are here. You took time off your busy schedules to stay here, and I'm grateful. I'm Karyn. I work as the economic and political coordinator at the Israeli Embassy for Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. And my core work, what I do is that I work with establishing partnerships and also working on innovative projects related to Israel's economic interests. I also work with the ambassador. I serve an advisory role to her where I advise her on economic and political happenings and related matters, also of interest to the Israeli embassy. So that's in summary what I do. Any other thing?
Thank you. Okay. I'll come back to you again.
Hello. Yeah. So thanks so much. My name is Emmanuel. I work with GIZ on a project called Make IT in Africa. And our main mandate is to promote digital innovations here in Ghana and Africa at large. And we do that by supporting tech entrepreneurs. We are more into promoting digital innovations, but there's no better way to do that than to seek out the people that are building businesses around the innovations that they're coming up with. So this is our logic of supporting tech entrepreneurs, that we find people who are doing innovative things, but are also building businesses around them for sustainability's sake, and to deploy those solutions out there to the people that need them. So this is what we've been doing for 2.5 years in Ghana, but 4 years across the continent. Yeah.
Thank you, Mano. I think you can keep on to the microphone. I'll start with you. So in terms of what you're doing, so 2 years in Ghana, what kind of partnerships have you really focused on? What is the ethos of the work you do? How do you build the right partnerships to make sure that you deliver in the goals of Make IT in Africa?
Right. So like any classic GIZ project, there's always a diagnosis for the project. And for Make IT, it was around the pain points of entrepreneurs. So what are the things that entrepreneurs struggle with? And if you ask them, they talk a lot about access to finance, access to markets, also skills and talent, not forgetting policies that are affecting them. So we coming into Ghana, we're looking at ways that we could directly support the entrepreneurs, but also fertilize the ecosystem. So our partnerships are a lot with government, because we know that the ecosystem plays a huge role in the success of entrepreneurs. And there are a lot of policies that are enabling of entrepreneurs, but there are a few policies that were made so many years ago that are not in alignment with the needs of entrepreneurs. So we kind of advising and working with government to see how we can build better policies around those things. And for directly with entrepreneurs, we have this the secret sauce, I would call it this way, where we are trying to foster collaboration between tech startups and corporates. So we talk a lot about entrepreneurs and investors, entrepreneurs and government, but there's usually less talk about entrepreneurs and established companies. And there's a lot to learn from companies that have done it so many years for the startups. But it will surprise you to also know that there's a lot that corporates can learn from entrepreneurs, because big companies kind of drift a bit away from technology when they grow bigger. I mean, they invest a lot in R&D, but they are not in touch with the trends. So this is what the entrepreneurs also bring to the table by showing them what the trends are in technology, and also learning some of the best practices of the established corporation. And this is something that we foster, not just within Ghana, but looking at local startups and corporates in Europe. So these are some of the partnerships that we've been doing. But we also have a big interest in enablers. We feel that enablers are the multipliers in our ecosystem. If myself and my team were a small team, there's only so much that we can do if we are directly implementing projects. So how about supporting an enabler that can reach 100 more of the same target group that you are looking for? So our thought process is, the more we enable the enablers, the more we are getting the work done. And so we work a lot with some innovation hubs, people that are enablers by the work that they do. Innohub is an example of such organizations who have done it for so many years, and you have so much experience in the field that you do. So we feel it's a no-brainer to support these ecosystem actors, because their success is the success of us, and this is kind of our logic in implementing our project.
Okay, thank you very much. I like when you say you want to fertilize the ecosystem. I will stay again with you, so don't drop. Yeah. So, but I picked up on the point about matching the startups with the corporates. It's a very important thing that you're seeking to do. Good partnerships between them. What has been some of the key learnings from that kind of approach to build partnerships between startups and the corporate bodies?
Right. I think the main lesson is aligning expectations and goals. And it's difficult to do, because if you are a big establishment, your goals are vastly different from if you are a startup, right? So if we are bringing you together, we need to find at some level some alignment, but it's difficult to find that alignment. So that has been the main challenge. But what we've learned is to establish that at the very beginning. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg situation. Do we find the startups, learn about their needs, and find corporates that have similar needs, or do we find corporates who have needs for startups? And that has been our challenge. We've tried both models, where we find startups, we identify their needs, and then we seek out establishments that are willing to partner with startups at that level. And what we realized was that it produced more results when it was the reverse, where we found big corporates and say, okay, you guys need more support, more integration in maybe an IoT technology, and we have some startups that have that solution. Do you want to partner with them? And they come in either as investors, as customers, or even as building a partnership of some sort and selling the products of these entrepreneurs through their network. And keep in mind, they have big customer base that anytime they open it up to the startups, it's a big leap for the entrepreneurs, for the startups, because there's no way you would have been able to access that customer base if you were not going through that kind of partnership. And this is some of the lessons that we learned.
I mean, it's a very good lesson, and that's why I wanted to drop it on, because I remember in 2019, through GIZ and through the Israeli embassy, we got a chance to understand the Israeli ecosystem. And you see how a lot of the banks, and in fact, one of the guys in the room is here, he's from Rwanda. He was in the Israeli program with Make IT in Africa funding. And what we noticed was when, for example, a bank that needs to innovate in a particular scope of the banking or fintech solution, instead of trying to build an in-house R&D team, really works with a hub. Right. And the hub identifies startups who can meet their needs. And once the startup builds the solution, the bank is the first customer for their solution. And that solution really doesn't struggle to get sold. Right. That way the customer is paying and the startup is getting their money for whatever they built. Absolutely. And they can actually cash out right at that stage. So it's something that we need to be exploring more, particularly from the angle of identifying what kind of challenges these corporates would have. If there are corporates who are into training institutions, how can you have ed tech startups who can build things for these corporates and they can become the customer base of that? So I thought it was a good thing you are looking to do, but we could go a step deeper to see how can it be a solution-driven approach for these corporates and what they need. I don't know if you want to add to that before Karyn could come in as well.
Yeah, I mean, for a big company or establishment, it's all about what makes sense for them. What value you're adding to them. So if you're coming from a solution point of view, then it's more attractive to them, because then they can easily identify what you are bringing into their fold, for instance. So that it's an easy sell if you have a solution for the corporates. And yeah, this is what we've learned as well, that the startups need to package their products in a sense that it's more attractive to the corporates, world.
Let me hold you on that before Karyn comes in. So the challenge is that somebody must curate the conversations. It becomes very difficult for a startup to wake up on their own and go to a big bank, I don't want to mention names, or go to a telco and say, I have this solution, and I think it's going to work for you. There must be that hand-holding. Right. If I can go back to the example of Israel, the Israeli Innovation Authority is basically driving the conversation with their own sponsored hubs who are creating that solution and leading the conversation to the banks instead of the startups going on their own. And as a country, in the Ghanaian context, how do we, forgive me, I've dwelt on you a bit, but this is a very dear to my heart topic. And how do we create that platform for startups who have such solution, like an e-campus in the room who has say, I have built this solution. If you're a bank and you want to build an education platform for your staff, there is no need trying to build on your, or go to India to buy an off-the-shelf one, but we have it here. How can we be the door opener for such startups? Where can it start from?
Yeah, I think it comes down to policy as well, right? There are so many, even within government, you'll be surprised that government agencies are outsourcing services to other places outside of Ghana. And it's not like we lack talent. Like the amount of talent that we have in Ghana, we should never outsource those kind of services, but we still do that. So I think policy would be a good place to start, because when you have policy that says that you need to use local talent, then it already opens a new market for the startups, right? But there has to be an intentional process where there's even a quota within banks, for instance, that we have this quota that we need to work with startups, or we need to work with local companies in this level. So that is already apportioned or demarcated for entrepreneurs to access. And I think policy, not only at government, when we talk of policy, it always looks like it's government, but policy can also even mean at the corporate level. Do we have a corporate policy that ensures that we are spending some of our resources on local talent and local businesses?
Thank you very much. I almost called on Mr. Oliver Boachi, but I forgot he's not a panelist. But he's in the room. Because partnerships really could go across some of these places for policy to make sure we can drive the conversations that would open doors for our startups who are building the innovative ecosystem in Ghana. Karyn,
Yes, Nelson.
tell us about what you're doing at the Israeli Embassy along the models of building innovations anchored on partnerships.
Okay, sorry, excuse me. So, thank you, Nelson. So, with the nature of partnerships we have at the Israeli Embassy, I'll coin it relational relationships. I call it relational relationships because, for example, with the Israel Embassy, we get like experts from Israel coming into Ghana and having conversations around a particular topic of interest or in a particular ecosystem. So then we match, just like Emmanuel said, they do at GIZ. We also match Israeli experts with the Ghanaian experts, and we have webinars that are open for people to come and discuss and have discussions and form solutions around areas of interest on both parties. Also, I would also say we have the more like a training of the trainee, like Emmanuel said. I think we do similar things like the enablers, like he said. So with that, it's more of capacity building, where we focus on training of a trainer. So for example, we have this Mashav. So Mashav is the more of the our international development agency in the embassy, and what they do is that they focus on training people in governmental agencies, private agencies, and also make sure that when they train them, they are able to give out the knowledge that I made or trained with them. I would also add that recently Mashav had like 13 students taken to Israel for some courses on training, and they do more of these courses to online. During the COVID, they had a virtual sessions where they were run over some time in different areas, in agriculture, in education, in health. So those are the two main ways I can say our nature of partnerships go. Yeah.
Very much, Karyn. I am privileged. I was a part of the Mashav program in 2019, and I see how kind of partnerships that would come from there. But again, one thing you may also want to touch on is there's a partnership we had recently to do the agri-tech.
Yes. So let me talk about that. So we had Innohub and a partner from Israel called Peers program, where we had an agri-tech accelerator which focused on we realized that there's a niche in the agri-tech space, and we got Innohub to help us with getting startups from Ghana who were interested in applying for this opportunity. And the peers, on the other hand, got Israeli startups to collaborate to form solutions around the products that the Ghanaian startups were working on. So that's one way we also partnered with Innohub on our projects, yes.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm curious to find out, what are from the embassy perspective, this kind of approach to partnership, where you could have said, we want to launch this program and work with startups on our own and da-da-da-da-da, as against working with an ecosystem enabler or a player, and to design the solution. We actually could design a solution with the ambassador and deploy that with PS Foundation in Israel. What has been the key learning for you from this experience?
I would say one key learning is that it wasn't a one-way thing. We learned from feedback given to us by the Ghanaian startups and then the Israeli startups that the Israeli startups got to understand the Ghanaian ecosystem, and it was an agri-tech accelerator, so mostly in the agri-technology sector. They got to understand the markets. They got to, connect and relate to their products to the Ghanaian market. So, and as well, the Ghanaian also trying to also learn from them to know how their products can also be to be exchanged in Israel. So it was a give and take, transfer of knowledge, yes. So that's what I would say was the key learning from us.
Okay. I'll leave you to drink some water for now. I'll come back to you. Christophe.
Yes.
Let's talk about partnerships with AFD. You've been in Ghana since 1985. I know AFD is about 80 years this year.
Exactly.
Exactly. Congratulations for 80.
That's not my age, but
of course you don't look 80.
That's it.
But so let's drill down. So Ghana was the first Anglophone country you came through. So being here, that means for about 30 plus years in Ghana, if I'm right, about 35 or so years in Ghana. What has been the nature of partnerships that you've pursued locally and making sure these partnerships ultimately works for the end beneficiary? And how has it worked so far for you? I mean, whether from then or since you came on?
Thank you. No, and thank you for reminding this long presence in Ghana and the long-lasting institution that I'm pleased to work in. And I was not there at the beginning, but I must say that our involvement in Ghana has basically transformed. We used to be focused a lot on infrastructure and working directly with the government. And one thing that is important to say that we have gone through quite a lot of transformations. And for example, the nature of our partners have diversified. So we are now financing, I must say, civil society organization, institution like Innohub. And we are also working a lot with public banks and public companies, which are, I think, important players in Ghana. Plus, obviously, the private sector too. So one thing that's important to say is also that we've been involved more and more with in the digital actors in Ghana. One specific thing I think IFD is doing in Ghana is that the programs for supporting digital initiatives are mostly across Africa. So let me give you 3 examples of what we've done. One is an AFD digital challenge to to promote entrepreneurs and ideas innovation across Africa. And it's a pleasure to say that one Ghanaian has been selected in 2020.
Oh, okay.
So let me just, not to make any mistakes with his name, is just to read it. Sezinam Dagadou. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, you know him?
We know him, yeah.
Yeah, he's promoting kind of a, he's probably, map, code, and so he has been selected. And it's a way to put him under the spotlights. And I think it's also a good way to label and to promote this kind of entrepreneurs. Another solution which is a bit different is Aston. So Aston is for Africa Smart Towns. I don't know if you are aware about this program, which is basically to build a network of cities, of network of assemblies and the Ghanaian one involved in Ghana is Kumasi, and the idea is for them to share ideas on how to use digital tools, digital way of delivering services to the citizens, to increase transparency, to find ways to do it in a more.
So in 2019, IFA policy was invited by members of the ecosystem.
And the last one that I would mention, but obviously you know
Network,
it, is
GIZ,
AFIDBA.
and Conrad
So
Adenauer
AFIDBA
Stiftung.
is a program, and thank you so much for Innohub for participating. So basically, the idea for AFIDBA is to have a lead incubator, which is a French one, Bondinov, plus 4 more incubators in Africa. So in Morocco, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and Ghana. And for Ghana, it was Innohub. And the idea was to go from selecting companies in a boot camp to put them in an acceleration program, and then in the end to finance some of them to help them. I think it was yes, a wonderful program. So thank you so much for this.
I agree. It was a wonderful program. So thank you very much. I would, Emmanuel, let me take it from you again. Still on partnerships. one of the things that we sometimes see is that there are a lot of partnerships around short-term projects. You know, so it's a 1-year thing, it's a 6-month thing, and what have you. If we want to deepen the conversation around partnerships, and we want to deepen the scope of impact, the short terms may not always get the wins that we're looking to do. So from your side, how do you think, what are the things we need to do to be able to deepen the engagement, prolong the partnerships, and get more sustained wins? What do you think would be the way out? Yes.
It's always a difficult question or topic to engage with when it's long-term partnership, because with long-term partnerships, you are tied with one another for a couple of years. But I think the best way out is to optimize the pilot period. So you have like a pilot that you run, you co-create it with a partner, and then you experiment it, you do it. And that based on the learnings, you kind of tweak it or alter it to take some of the learnings into the future. So I think
let me come in a bit. I've seen a lot of cases where so many pilots are rolled out, but you never have a longer term. So it's almost like we propose go on a first date, we enjoy the dinner, and then that's it. So a lot of first dates are happening by the same people. The same Kofi and Amma on the first date, 10 times first date. How do we move from the first date to proper marriage where there's a longer term commitment from, you get what I mean?
I get what you mean. I mean, the main reason for going on a date is to explore, longer term relationship, which might lead to marriage, right? So just using your own analogy. But I think it's like I said, it's a very difficult topic to engage with because the partners have their own focus and interests and their own bureaucracies. They have their own ways of doing things. And signing long-term deals at the beginning could affect the relationship at the end. So you would want to do the pilot, and you are saying, from your points, you are looking at how we can improve the success rates of these pilots, right? And I think my proposal would be to build it around research. So one of the things, from my experience, running projects with different partners is that there's very little research that goes into what could work between us, right? So you rush into partnerships, there's a big announcement, and the next steps are not so clear. And I think the fastest way to kill a project is a project that doesn't have impact for the long term, because you hurt your integrity as both partners in the deal, but you also affect the potential beneficiaries because they should have been benefiting from the project, but you are running it with some deficiencies in it, and you've wasted their time, you've wasted resources that could have been used for other projects, and it's ultimately not useful for any partner in that sense. So I don't have a clear answer because it's case-by-case basis. Sometimes from our side, it's also based on the available resources. So sometimes even the resources come in different formats, right? It could be more resources, but in a different format or with a different mandate, with a different interest or focus. So it always has to align, but I agree to, and I'm very aligned with the idea of building longer partnership. Because if you even claim to be ecosystem driven, you would understand that ecosystems don't develop overnight. So we could run a project for 1 year, but the fruits of those seeds that you planting would only bear fruit in 2 or 3 years to time. But if I make a judgment now, then you are not being fair to the whole program. So there's that side of it where we have to understand what the gestation period of your actions are. When do we expect fruit from it? And when can we make it a decision or a validation that okay, this was a good enough project for us to even do more years to come. So like I said, I don't have a clear answer to you, but this is what I can say.
So for the record, Emmanuel agrees with me that we need to build more longer-term partnerships anchored on research. So we will do our research and come to you, GIs, for long-term partnerships. And then we will quote you on this platform with a picture from this event. We need more longer-term partnerships to make this work. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for very insightful remarks. Karyn, you have the mic in your hands.
Yes.
How can we make partnerships work?
I'll go back to what you mentioned initially in your statement. Remember you mentioned Israel having an innovation hub, and I can give an example of that, how it works over there. So like we have the government over there and then academia, as well as international companies, institutions working together. The government deals with the policy side, like what my colleague here, Emmanuel, said, and the academia brings the research, and then the international companies bring the experience to the table. So if all these three factors are working together and are aligned on a purpose or particular goal, it would work. It will work.
So government, academia,
and then institutions.
And institutions, the private players coming together.
Yes.
I like that triangle. But I've heard it before, and I keep asking myself, why is it not working? Because and sometimes you go for events, there's more collaboration between academia and the private players and government. I'm sure Mr. Boachi would bear me out. He has said it before as well. He's said it in different places. More collaboration between private players with government and academia doing the research and anchored on that. I've seen where it's working. What is not making it work? Is it that there is no one driving the conversations beyond the mention? Or are we quick to go back to what we are used to and all of why is it not working? Why are we not driving that conversation? And I believe at the point when we start comments and questions from the audience, I believe Mr. Oliver Boachi would also share his thoughts and insights on some of these things. Why is it not working? And what do we need to do to make it work?
So you're saying why it's not working. I'm thinking we are still working in silos.
What should we do to make it work?
I think we are on the way. We are on the journey. We are getting there, but we are not there yet. But the thing is that I feel we still have that culture and mindset of working in silos. And if that is broken, it would drive that mindset for us to work together. There's still hope, Nelson. There's actually still hope for that collaboration. We just have to just integrate the policies and then the academia research. I leave it to the policymakers and then the people who are decision makers to make that connection. But then I feel like, as you said, driving the conversation, having webinars and seminars like this also helps in pushing that agenda eventually and getting there, hopefully.
So more conversations and more action could make it happen. Christophe, how do we deepen partnerships and make it work for innovation?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the comments and the ideas also. And that's the great question, I should say. Let me just start with, from the point of view of a donor like AFD. What is making a partner a good partner? And so perhaps if I just have to tell something about what we've learned during our collaboration with Innohub, for example, perhaps three things. First, we should not underestimate the dynamism of the entrepreneurs in many countries, especially in Ghana. I was really impressed. I think it's not very well known around the world, but it's something which is true and which is happening actually. So I think it must have a bit of hope on that. Second, I'm impressed by the work done by Innohub. But it's not only Innohub. I think that in some countries you have really good tech hubs that really helps the partner with a lot of professionalism, a lot of quality in the work and in the services that are provided. And I think that's something which is very basic, but which is really needed and should be supported. And this is part of the solution, I think. Have good structure that yours, and perhaps more, that can help the entrepreneurs. You do not find, I think, such structures, such institution everywhere in Africa. And that's also a challenge, I would say, to build a network of this kind of institution around many countries in Africa, and it can help enlarge, I should say, the ecosystem beyond the country. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to say, I must say that I think donors will always be interested in digital innovation. The big idea, I think, is leapfrogging. So it's now common, but there is really that idea that with digital solutions you can accelerate development, and this is something that all the donors will look for. The big question is how you accelerate development, how you leapfrog. And you have those examples of successes. So I'm thinking of Safaricom in Kenya, you think of Jumia, you think of those. So that's interesting to see how it happens, those successes. For Safaricom, what's interesting is that it's a partnership with a Kenyan bank and a British company, Vodafone. And that team says a lot, I think, about how to partners. The idea comes from the ground, and then you partner with a private company which brings a lot of financial power, a lot of technical power also. I think that's part of the solution. One thing that is perhaps underestimated is that those examples, I do not think that they really reflect the state of innovation in Africa. A lot of innovators are still craftsmen, in a sense. That's my feeling, but perhaps would be interesting to have your view. So that's the challenge. How we build something which is fit for those innovators. I should say that that's where we have to look for. So it means what kind of added value we bring. So how do we look for those people who can have good ideas but who are missing perhaps technical capacity? One idea is to go beyond, I should say, the capital cities, to go to the secondary cities to see if there are good ideas here, to how you enhance the capacity of those people. That's, I think, crucial, because that's true, and that I joined the views of the other panelists, that the major challenge for Africa is that the level of research and development spending is very, very low. So for the moment, you have to find alternative ways of one way of doing this is to find those people, to provide them the resources that they are needing, that first thing, and then work on finance. How do you finance those people? How you have more business angels? How you have more institution ready to finance those very risky investments? Perhaps part of the solution is not only on having tech hubs, which I think in some countries you have, but also on how you bring more money, more finance ready to be invested in those solutions.
So I like your last point very, very well. I mean, how do you have not just tech hubs, but also have more money into the ecosystem to be able to support innovations that would come up? And I would combine a number of questions in here. So you also mentioned professionalism on the part of the partners you work with, something you saw with us, and you would like to see more of such hubs around. Linking to that's your very last point on bringing in money. There is the clear point when you go to other ecosystems where the tech hubs, the accelerators, typically, they are well funded to be able to also, as they support the startups, sometimes do the first pre-seed investment in them. That is one. Number two, they are also well funded operationally. So you see a hub, their human capital is on point. They have the right professional staff. They can bring on experienced professionals to work in there. That is because they have well enough operational partnerships. That comes with operational funding. Typically, and I will speak in this case for the hubs who are not here, typically you see cases where hubs get program funding or programmatic funding, but hardly get operational funding. So they are surviving from one to the other. So the hubs that are supposed to be strong enough to support the building of innovative startups and to support these startups and to fund them. So it's like your father struggling to take care of you. You can't be richer in most times than your father unless you start working on your own. How do we build, and I'll start with Emmanuel again on this, how do we build a system where there is real operational partnerships on the ground? That would cover operational needs of these apps. And then the second level where Christophe would pick up would be getting more money into the hubs to be able to now, if I go to Station F, for example, they will be able to fund in the startups who they accelerate. So a lot of startups from Africa want to move to Station F because they'll give them space, they could get some funding and what have you. How do we build that kind of ecosystem through partnerships in Ghana? So Emmanuel, start with the operational partnerships and then...
Right. And my answer to this question is one word: specialization. And specialization on both ends. Specialization from the development partners' end to say that I want to support this one or two hubs for the next 2 or 3 years and build them to a point where they are delivering quality programs, right? And not to spread your wings too wide and the impact becomes very thin, right? So I think that specialization is very needed, that we invest a lot more in fewer intermediaries and just working a lot more with them to get them to that level. And then specialization on the part of the partners, that you are not trying to do everything in the world. There are so many innovation hubs that we work with, and you talk about a fintech program, they are there. If you talk about an e-health program, they are there. Agri-tech program, they are there. Anything you mention, they are there. They never tell you that, you know what, we don't do this. This is what we do, and this is what we are good at. So, and it's understandable at a certain level because they want to survive. And when you are in the survival mood, anything goes.
Yeah.
But I think specialization would really carve out a niche for you. And now they say the riches are in the niches. If you niche down, it looks too small. But over time, you establish yourself well enough that anyone who thinks about that particular topic thinks about you and not in generic forms. So I would use that word specialization, and I'll challenge both ends, the development partners as we are, that we are not looking for big numbers and saying, yeah, we've supported 30 hubs when it's very light on the impact. But I would like to say I've supported Innohub for the next 4 or 5 years, and they are now delivering programs for the whole of Africa. That would make me a happy man if that happens. And I would also want to challenge the intermediaries and the hubs that they are bold enough, and I know it's not easy, but they are bold enough to say that we are standing to be an agri-tech specialized hub, or to be more on health or education, something like that. And I think that would really put some more power behind that.
I mean, that is nice. It's a good advice. Sometimes you have to you follow the money when you are looking to survive. So trying to really navigate that process, I think is where most of the hubs will find themselves, or find ourselves really, because you need to keep the bills paid. So once you see a call and you know you can deliver, you sometimes try to get in there. So maybe with time, this could have, but now people are still trying to find their feet. So Jodas, how do you get more funding into the ecosystem to be able to, as you mentioned, fund these innovators who come up?
Well, unfortunately, I suppose I do not have a straight answer and straight and easy answer. But no, I think that asking the question first is a start. But so the main thing, I suppose, is to promote the idea that we need those kind of financing. And it's, to be honest, I think it's a difficult job to do venture capital. It's a difficult job, and it takes a lot of skills. And I think that as much as we are supporting the tech hubs, we should also support venture capitals, and in different ways. It's not only bringing financing to the venture capitals. It could also mean bringing training to the venture capitals, to learn how to support risky companies, to learn how to how you engage with a company which is not still very well structured. That's a risky investment, but on which you are ready to bet in a sense. So that could be a next step, I should say. I suppose we should also engage the governments with this, and perhaps also major companies also. Why not promoting the idea of having a venture capital fund funded by the Googles, the Facebooks, banks, which are ready to bring or bigger funds with some experience. This is, I think, something which is already there. Sometimes you have some funds ready to do this, but not enough, and that perhaps is to be supported by donors, but others too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very good point to make in terms of partnerships with the corporates. If I have some access to excess cash as a company, how can I get into a bit of VC funding, set up new VCs, corporate venturing? That is coming up globally. So it's a good point. We need to see how we could explore that in Ghana and get corporates to the table and really understand corporate venturing. And now they could actually also finance startups through that. So very good point you make. At this stage, I know, Karyn, you were making some point. I don't know whether you want to say something on the last question. But before you come in, if there is anyone in the audience who has a comment or a question, we would allow you to do that right after Karyn. But I know Mr. Boache would also possibly make a few remarks on this point. That could be as well. Right? Good. So Karyn, you could take that, and then maybe that mic could be brought over, and then you could. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Just briefly, just to add to what my colleague said, Christophe and Emmanuel. Christophe said something that really hit the nail on the head, especially with focusing on, it was Emmanuel, on specialization. And it's really important because then if developing partners are all focused on the strengths, for example, Israel is focused on tech and agri, the French is focused on what they are really good at. Coming together, at the end of the day, we can make the Ghanaian startups or companies the driving force of like the the plans that come out of those collaborations. And as well, when we collaborate with each other, it also helps strengthen the ecosystem as developing partners to help or to promote our programs to the Ghanaian startups or fellow ecosystem.
Fair enough. I think we would look at that conversation around how to build specialized ecosystem players who know that if it's ag-tech or it's agribusiness, this is where we sit. If it's grain, this is where we sit. So thank you very much, Karyn. It's a very good point you add on as well. So Mr. Oliver Boache is with Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, MEST for short. So this conversation sits right in his space as well. And I've seen him in a number of events where he speaks very passionately about that. So I would like him to make some comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a brilliant panel discussion. I listened, and at some point I wanted to intervene, but of course I didn't have a seat there, and I'm glad you've given me the opportunity.
There's one more seat I could bring you up.
No, I'm fine here. This is a very comfortable seat here. So thank you for the opportunity. You asked a question at some point, and that was why are partnerships not working? And I was wondering if we were just referring to Ghana or referring to partnerships in general across the world. And what I would like to say about that is that this model of partnerships between government, academia, and industry, which is typically known as the triple helix model, actually works. There are countries around the world where this model is being used and it's been very, very successful. I had my experiences about that in Korea when I first went there, and they gave me an opportunity to study how they have leveraged on science, technology, and innovation for their development. And it's based on this triple helix model. If you go to Israel, it's the same thing. And in the US, it is the engine that has driven this US economy to create the Silicon Valleys and so on and so forth. What Karyn said was that we are getting there. Getting there in the sense that this, for me, is the beginning of the journey. And what you are seeing today is the result of partnerships at a certain level. You know, as we said, we've just started. And this innovative thing that we are doing with the Ghana Digital Innovation Week is the result of partnerships that have started, which has a great future for this country. I have no doubt that what we are studying from Israel, what we are studying from Germany, what we are studying from our friends in Korea, and on Wednesday, you will see something that we are doing with Korea that will amaze you and make you know that, yeah, the future of this country is so bright. And so I will not buy into the argument that it is not working. It is not working because here in Ghana, we have just started. And I know that if we carry on with this trajectory, what we are doing, within the next 10 years, maybe even shorter, you will see amazing things happening in this country. My minister talked this morning about Wednesday, day 3. And I want all of you to come and listen to him because we have a blueprint and we believe that this country is headed in the right direction and the partnerships will work. They haven't worked in the past because we didn't know what we were doing. Everybody thought they an island unto themselves, they can make things happen. But there's nowhere in the world where any one individual or one institution has done it all and succeeded. Innovations require collaboration. It requires stakeholder engagement. And some of the things that we are creating in this country, there's a concept known as market push and technology pull, or the other way around. If you come up with an innovation that is based on something that the market is telling you that we need, there's no reason why it wouldn't work. Sometimes you come up with an idea, you have some technology, and you think that everybody needs it, without the market itself telling you that this is what we need. It takes much hard work and a lot of risk to push technology onto something that doesn't have a ready market. All these things are things that we are learning in the partnerships and the collaborations that we are having. And I believe very, very strongly that in the next few years, you are going to see amazing things happening in this country. And that question will never have to come up, because if you went to Korea and asked that question, they will tell you, hey, my friend, it is working. If you went to Israel, they will tell you it is working. It is only in Ghana and maybe in other parts of Africa that we can't say that with any degree of confidence. But it's only because we haven't found the way yet. And now we are creating something that is unique for Ghana, because we are not transplanting anything from Korea or Germany or Israel. We are looking at the good elements in each of these countries, putting them together to create something that is unique to Ghana. And I want to say it again, that in the next few years, we are all going to see a big difference taking place in this country. Thank you very much.
Can we give a clap? Can we give? Thank you very much, Mr. Boach, for very inspiring words. Like I mentioned, he's very passionate about this conversation, and I'm happy to hear it is working. I want to be a believer, and as I believe, it is working, and we're going to push. We've started. Karyn said we've started. Mr. Boach said the same thing. Emmanuel and Christophe are saying the same things, and we want to believe that as we've started from somewhere, we would push and make this work. I was given a note some time ago that we have only 10 minutes more, and time is fast running up. So if there is no other comment, which I believe I've not seen a hand up. Okay, there's a comment. I'll take the last one. I'll come back to my panelists to wrap up in a minute each, and we can. Yes, Charles. Okay.
Hello. Yes, thank you so much. My name is Charles Shaka. I'm coming from Rwanda, representing 250 Startups, which is a multi-partner incubation and acceleration hub. So we had something concerning partnership. So really believe in partnership. Now, my comment today is for the organization really on the panel. One of the challenges we really have, one from the hub perspective, but also on startup companies. Actually, one of the, in the opening remarks, the speaker talked about the procurement process. That's one. But when you look at how really these big organizations, they take us now on the side of the hub in trying to partner with companies or the hubs that have been in the ecosystem for, let's say, decade, looking in terms of the experience. Which is challenging on the startup companies, because we have the software, we're struggling to make a company really work in terms of the startup company. But when you look at the way how to attract more partners on board with that experience, it's really challenging. So the way that the question I'm coming up with, how best can we help such a startup company on that level? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, if I don't have so much traction, so many years of experience, maybe Emmanuel, when you're wrapping up a comment, you could touch on that. How do we still get the room for partnerships without people looking out for our track record before they give us a chance at the table?
This is wrapping up, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start on a broader level. And my comment is really about the approach that we take as Make IT. And I keep hammering on that point that we are very ecosystem driven, which means that we are looking at the general environment within which the startups find themselves. And there's a positive correlation between the success of entrepreneurs or startups and the maturity of an ecosystem. So you'd find so many startups coming from an ecosystem because there's some level of maturity. There is infrastructure in place. There's knowledge that they can always fall back on, and it makes them succeed more than ecosystems that are now emerging. So we have that kind of logic that if we support and fertilize the ecosystem, it would affect the success rate of the entrepreneurs and startups. And just coming back to his question around how upcoming startups can benefit from the support or partnerships of other organizations, I think the main strategy is to just build a system within your company. So when we want to work with startups, they say, yeah, we have a startup, we want support. And you dig deep into the startup, and they are not registered. It's just a one-person team. They haven't built any team around it. There's no structure where if you're an investor, you feel confident that I can put my money in. So it's not about money. It's just putting the right things in place where when someone comes, they feel like, okay, I'm getting into a partnership with an organization. And it goes beyond just registration. Some people register, but they still don't build a structure. So for me, the best way to get a partnership is to, first of all, be a qualified organization, that we can call you an organization. There's a team in place. There are roles. If I ask who is the finance person, maybe the person is a volunteer, but there are roles in there that people can see that I can invest in the structure that you have. So this will be my final comments on that we need to first of all think about the ecosystem in general, and at the micro level where we are talking about startups, that we are consciously building systems in our businesses that attract partnerships, that there's an organization here that I can partner with. Right.
Thank you very much. Karyn, concluding thoughts?
So, yes, so concluding thoughts. I think Emmanuel answered the question, yes, okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to add that there are opportunities out there for programs in the ecosystem in hubs as well. One I can say is there's this PS challenge that our partners in Israel is having. Their focus for next year is sustainable food systems in Ghana. And these are opportunities that are out there and that are being promoted for everyone to apply for with no charges, free of charge, apply for them, go through the process, and you get Israeli tech startups collaborating with the applicants to form solutions and eventually network. So my concluding thoughts are there are opportunities. You just have to look for them and take hold of those opportunities and make use of them as well. So that's one thing I'm saying.
Thank you very much for the information, sorry. Christophe?
Thank you. Yes, as a wrap up and perhaps a comment on the questions, I should say. First, I would say that really I'm really positive actually, because we feel all the difficulties extra. But when you look at the figures from the recent years, you see the magnitude of the transformation of what Africa is going. In Ghana, more specifically, in terms of digital transformation, the number of tech hubs growing. I found some numbers showing that between 2016 and 2019, I think the number of tech hubs basically doubled everywhere. So it's really something which is increasing very rapidly, and it's difficult to realize what is happening. So it's really, I agree, the beginning of the journey. And I would be happy to see where we are in some few years. So that's one first thing. The second thing, I think that what's important is to have tailor-made solutions. You can't escape this with startups. And that is why it's so difficult, because it consumes a lot of resources, and you have many failures for very few successes. So you are doing basically a very hard job, very difficult job, and this should be recognized as such. Yeah. And my last point is that perhaps we could also think of a system with different layers. So you should work with very small companies, startups, and have a dedicated system for them. I think the government should also have a system that brings bigger companies, bigger SMEs with an innovation capacities, and make sure that they have the access to banks. And then you have really to think about the research and development expenses and spending also at the level of government, and how you make sure that in every country you have a minimum of investment in that field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christophe. I like the last point, minimum investment across various fields. We need to really have a conversation on that. But I want to thank you first, Karyn, the lady among the gentlemen. We try not to have manuals, so we have panels. Women and men should be on the table. So Karyn from Israeli Embassy, thank you very much for being here. Emmanuel from GIZ. And Christophe as well, thanks for spending your time and sharing the insights with us. And to all of us in this room, thanks for the audience. We believe the conversations will be going on. And the more we do that, the more, as Mr. Boch said, the path is on. Let's just make it happen over time. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening.